Like Tzvi said, I'm doing this as a chesed, full disclosure, there's no compensation. So what I'm about to say is true, comes from the heart. Nobody put me up to it. I just want to thank Tzvi and Amudim for the work that they do. I've been in practice, independent practice, for over 10 years, and there are many organizations in our community that address a range of mental health issues, all of them wonderful, all of them do a good job. It was about a year ago that one of my clients asked me if I've heard of Amudim, and I hadn't, and she said, you have to work with them because they're the only organization that really helped me. And I got in touch with them, and the response, the work they do is phenomenal. After getting to know Tzvi, and he said almost everything I have to say. I think he gave my entire speech today already, which is just a testament to his knowledge and his involvement in the field. And then his caseworkers and his staff. And the more I got to know them, these are people. Tzvi has assembled a staff of people who were involved in helping before they joined Amudim. Every single one of them, starting from when they were teenagers, were involved in helping their friends in a non-professional capacity and then getting involved professionally. They're dedicated to a degree that I have not seen anywhere else. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I would say this on microphone in Lakewood, but I'm a member of a WhatsApp group, and occasionally, people post, I have this relative, I have this friend who's suffering, comes from a broken home, is suffering with addiction or another mental illness. Does anyone know where I could turn for help? And all the organizations pop up. And inevitably, as somebody who deals with this daily, unfortunately, I call them privately, and I tell them you have to reach out to Amudim. Because Amudim doesn't only give a referral and doesn't only care, they follow through. They make sure the finances are there. They make sure there's follow-up. Like Tzvi said, when the people come out of the treatment, they follow up with support, and they really see it through until the job is done. So I thank Tzvi and I thank Amudim for the work that they do. I was asked not to speak too clinically. When they asked me to speak, they asked me to send a recording of a presentation I had given, and it was actually at a professional conference, and the whole thing was statistics and research. So they said, keep it not clinical. Everybody who's here is here because they want to help. They want to know what's going on with addiction and what can we do to help. And those are the two questions that I want to answer briefly, and maybe at the end we'll take questions. The why and what we could do about addiction. We have to understand the psychology and the mentality of an addict. Imagine that we're driving over the Verrazano Bridge, and there's a man standing on the edge of the bridge. He's teetering on the edge. And somebody calls the authorities, and the police come, and the fire department comes, and they call in an expert. The crisis expert comes with a megaphone, and he turns it on, and he says to the man, do you know how you're hurting your family? Do you know what a shameful thing you're doing standing on the bridge? Do you know you have to stop this now? How could you do this to everybody? That never happens. That's not what they say. They come up the bridge and they say, do you know there's a reason to live? Do you know that whatever problem that you have, we're going to help you? Step down. If you're in debt, we'll find funds to cover it. If you're suffering with depression, we'll get you treatment. If you're lonely, we're going to include you in the community. We'll bring you into our houses. We'll find you a place where you belong. We'll get you into treatment. The addict is not so different. Imagine a child who's coming into preschool. Every child comes in expecting to succeed. They imagine the friends they're going to make. They imagine the skills they're going to learn. They imagine the pat on the back they're going to get from their teacher. And unfortunately, for too many, somewhere along the way, whether it's in preschool or elementary school or high school or beyond, they've been rejected. They've been told that they're just not good enough. Some have been mistreated. Some have even been abused. And they learn quickly that the conventional way of getting to their goals just doesn't work for them. And then somebody introduces a substance, whether it's alcohol or a pill, that actually makes them feel good. And nobody sets out to destroy themselves. I've never spoken to an addict, and I've been doing this for too long. I ran an addiction center in Florida for 6 years, 180 beds. I've seen thousands of addicts. I've never spoken to an addict who told me that drugs don't kill. I've never spoken to an addict who told me this lifestyle that I live is a great way of life. This is what I wanted to be when I grow up. I wanted to be using drugs and alcohol. It's almost inevitably, because they've been brought to believe that the other way of life just won't work for them. Or even if it'll work, it doesn't speak to them the way that the drugs do. It's so hard to study. It's so hard to try to make friends when you're being bullied. And it's so easy to pop a pill and to feel good. And so the solution is not to when the addict comes into the office, to explain to him how terrible addiction is. He knows that already. The solution is to tell him how much hope there is, to tell him that life can be lived, you can get what you want, and we're here to help you. You're not in it alone. Studies show that with all the prizes, all the reinforcers that you could give somebody to motivate them to continue a behavior, the number one reinforcer that works the quickest and that works every time, counterintuitively, is to tell somebody, good job. You tell a child or even an adult, you did a good job, strong work. That motivates them to come back again, more than money, more than prizes. All a person needs to hear is, you're doing well. And that's why when you walk into an AA meeting, you walk into a 12-step group, what's the opening? Hi, I'm Yaakov, I'm an addict, and I've been sober for 2 days. And everybody claps. I've met 60-year-old men who suffered their whole life with drugs and alcohol, and their most prized possessions, some of them have reached the heights of achievement in the world. They're successful businessmen, doctors, lawyers, but their most prized possession is their 1-year little chip that they got from the AA, that they were told, you did a good job. You really made it for a year. And that's really all it takes to pull somebody out of a life of destruction and set them on a path of achievement. Like Tzvi said, it's not only children, it's not only teenagers. Unfortunately, there are people with families, with jobs, with all the trappings of success, who drown their lives and self-destruct on a daily basis with substances. And it's because somewhere, they're not feeling good job. It might be that they have to learn themselves to celebrate their own accomplishments, and that's part of the work that we do, to teach a person how to pump themselves up, how to say to themselves, I did a good job. But that's really what it takes to set them on a path of success. That happens with therapy, individual and group therapy, psychiatry, medication, neurology. There are answers for every problem. The treatments are there. The question is having the person buy in that I could really live life the proper way. I just want to say quickly, I was going to end it here and leave the rest out, because after I graduated with the doctorate degree and I did my postdoc and I did my trainings, I did my supervision, I was living in Brooklyn at the time, and I had the opportunity to spend 1 day a week on Fridays driving one of the head of the Flatbush Besdin, one of the big poskim of Brooklyn, an older man who's been around for a while and who knows a lot. And I spent 1 day a week driving him, and I used to discuss cases with him and life with him. He had a lot of insight. He told me, never speak musar. Never tell anybody what they're doing wrong. Always build people up. It's the only way to get them to change. I wasn't planning on, I have to tell you this. I was in his shul. There's an unplanned story. You have to hear the story. I was in his shul. I was in his shul on Shabbos Shuvah. That's the Shabbos between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The Shabbos of Musar. The Shabbos when we tell people what they're doing wrong. And he got up to speak, and he spent the entire time telling his congregation what a great congregation they are. He said how holy everybody is, what a good job they're doing. And then at the end he said, and we should do better. And he sat down. So I went over to him, I said, Rabbi, you really missed the boat. Today's not Today's, Shabbos Shuvah, it's time to tell people what they did wrong. And he told me, no. He said, Musar is telling people you're good, be better. It was so insightful. You can't build from a place of ripping somebody down. The way to build somebody up is you're good, you're doing good. Now do better. But that being said, this weekend, and again, I was going to leave this out, but it's very, very insightful. This weekend, our community hosted one of the big mashgichim from a major yeshiva. A mashgiach is a Musar giant. This was a man, I've never met anyone like him. A regal man. He thought before every word he said. He was so the self-control, he was so measured. So I was in a private conversation with him, and the conversation turned to the subject of addiction. And I asked him, Rabbi, do the Musar Svarim, does the Torah talk about addiction? And he immediately said yes. In the 9th parak of Mesilas Yesharim, which was written by Rabbi Luzzatto in the 1700s, a Kabbalist, he said, look over there, and when it talks about the trait of laziness, he says the following words. He says, Einenu adom ba'atzmo, the person does not have control over himself. La'asos hepech zeh kishayirtzeh, to do the opposite of what he wants when he decides to. And he says that's addiction. That when a person, it was written in the 1700s, when a person becomes accustomed to a comfortable life, and when they find something, in this context, the text is talking about a lazy, comfortable life. And when you get used to comforts, and you get used to it coming easy and immediate gratification, it becomes impossible, Einenu adam ba'atzmo, it becomes impossible for the person to overcome themselves, to do differently when they want to. So I asked him, that's a very dire prognosis. So what's a person supposed to do? So he told me that his Rabbi Rucham Levovitz, who was the Mashgiach in the Mir in Poland, who died in 1936, used to say that all it takes to overcome this is to move from the couch to the front lines. And he explained what that means is that there are two ways of looking at the world. He said, some people, today's day, this is the way it is. Some people are looking for a life of comfort, and the way that the rabbi said it, they sit on the couch. And some people understand that the world is a battle, and that there are challenges, and that it's going to be hard. And all it takes to overcome is to move your mindset from the couch to the front lines. And this is really the work that we do in addiction treatment, is you move your mindset from immediate gratification from the couch to the front lines, that there's a battle, but you can win the battle. And then he told me very telling words. He said, but you can't paint it black. The world is not black. And he said, it's a very beautiful world. And you have to tell people that the world is rewarding and that the world is full of light and full of accomplishment. And every time that you win a battle, it's important to celebrate and say, good job. And that gives you the strength to move forward. So to shift the mindset to a world of accomplishment, of a world of light, a world of battle, a person can pull through. Just one more story. A wife once came into my office, and she said, I don't know what's wrong with my husband. He's just acting, there's something wrong with him mentally. We need a diagnosis. I think he might be schizophrenic or bipolar. He's acting bizarre. And I spoke to her, she was crying, and then she walked out and her husband walked in. I spoke to him for 5 minutes. I said to him, you're high, you're using pot, right? And he said, yeah. So I said, what about your wife? He said, since I started smoking, my shalom bayis has only gotten better. So here she is crying over the destruction that her husband is destroying their marriage through marijuana use, and he's thinking that everything got better since I started using marijuana. So sometimes there's a disconnect. Sometimes we all see how the person is destroying everything, and they think things are getting better. So the first step sometimes is pulling them out of denial. But through work and through pulling them through and showing them the good job that they're doing and showing them how life could be full of light, they could pull out of it and they could live a successful life.